Now, in the studio with me this morning, I have Mr. Bernard Boahing. He's the Executive Director of the Splendid Foundation. Good morning, Bernard.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm fine, and you?
Great, fine, thank you very much. Bernard, I want to ask you, because culturally, historically, we haven't been too good with children who don't do well in school. We usually blame it on spiritual forces. We blame it on society. We blame it on friends. But we never actually think about the fact that they may actually be a learning disability. So, are we fully aware of the difficulties in Ghana?
Let me start by making this analogy, as it were, because it is a social block. Supposing you are a very rich man, and you get to the bank. The bank has issued you an ATM card, but you get to one ATM, you are able to make a withdrawal. But a particular ATM, anytime you get to that ATM, you can't make the withdrawal. You are told that it is processing, but at the end of the day, you have another instruction that pick your card out, right, because you can't access your money. Right. You are rich, all right, but from a particular ATM, you can't get access to your money. Okay. That is, just to put it into perspective, people who have learning difficulties are intelligent, all right. Yeah. Their brains are functioning well, but certain aspects of that functionality seems to be not commensurate with what they are supposed to be able to do. Okay. And so, as I said, as a nation, yes, we see the problems. Teachers identify that the children have certain problems. Teachers realize that children are not able to perform as they should, even though they realize that this kid is smart, all right, but is unable to perform as the child should. But then the question is, are we able to help?
Okay. Bernard, our educational system in Ghana is, in my particular words, not completely the best. We've actually been recorded by UNICEF as having the highest amount of truantism within our teachers in West Africa. So how is it that these teachers who are not necessarily well equipped, who when they want to will go to the classroom, are even able to identify and relate to the children to find out if it's a learning disability, or as some may put it, they're just being slow?
Yeah, you see, it is said that a Latin adage, "Nebo dat non habet." You can't give what you don't have. So there are two ways. One has to do with how well the teacher is trained, as it were, and the other has to do with the preparedness of that teacher to modify the learning environment to ensure that these children are accommodated
in the normal basic exams. Now, they took these children outside of the school environment, they put them in a room and gave them computer games to play. Now, these 100 kids had the hand-eye coordination of airline pilots, of people who fly planes in the wars and the rest of that, and these were the things that they identified, and now they're going to go and develop on those. Do we have any plans to look at not just what's in front of us in maths and English, and to try and develop our children?
Exactly. That should be the focus now. In our view, from the Splendid Foundation, we think that the environment matters. The situation in the classroom matters to these children. And so there is a need for us to modify the content. We shouldn't do the one-size-fits-all approach, that this is how it is done. Because for them, it might not work in that manner. So you need to identify, what kind of a child am I dealing with? What are the specific needs of this particular child? And how do I meet the needs? Because even in the overall issue that we are talking about, they are individualistic. Yeah. So you may have two people who are having dyslexia, having difficulties with reading, writing, and spelling. But then the difficulties are along a certain spectrum, a continuum. Some may be mild, others may be moderate, some may be severe, others may be profoundly affected. And so even within the individual assessments, we need to make a distinction between what is good for child A and what may be good for child B.
So is it safe to say that our curriculums within our schools at the moment do not incorporate anything that has any way of identifying kids with learning disabilities?
They are not supposed to identify per what is there. Because the identification actually comes with
let's say identification, but I mean, are these curriculums conducive then to anybody who has a learning disability? Can they still be able to pass their courses and their exams?
It will depend on the nature of the disability that they have.
Okay.
For instance, if you have a child who has a problem with reading, writing, spelling, or somebody who has a problem with reading, it may be that the font type should be changed.
Right.
A certain font type might not be suitable for, let's say, dyslexics.
Okay.
You see, like the italics, if you italize something, it may be difficult, and some of the letters are turned, like the A, they are turned sort of upside down in some of the font types. So the font type matters, the font size itself matters, and the color of the text also matters. So, but these things are not taken into consideration.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. What percentage of children within Ghana at the moment are suffering from learning disabilities? Did you have any statistics?
For now, we don't have a national statistic, but at least from researches that we have conducted, not the national research, like case studies and some surveys, you could, even from information we gathered from teachers, we are looking at least about 10%. It will be safe to say we are talking in the ranges of about 10%, and that also seems to be the international
around the same
statistic.
Okay.
Yeah. And if you look at other countries with similar demographics like ours, if we are putting this around 10%, and the situation we have in Ghana, we could say we may even be recording higher if we just look at the assessment that we have been having.
So who should be spearheading this? Who should be taking charge? Who should be leading the campaign in order for children with learning disabilities to be, covered, to be safe, to be able to given the same chances as people who don't have disabilities?
I would look at the provider of education, the one on whom the ultimate responsibility of education lies, government. But then I also look at the responsibilities of other people.
Parents?
Yes, parents especially, because you need to have a relationship between the school and the home in dealing with these issues. Whatever methodology, whatever instructional approach you develop, parents should play a role. And so the parents themselves must know what it is. And the teachers must know and collaborate with the parents, so that you are dealing with the problem from the school level and the home level. When the child comes home, how should the child learn? Do you put a child who is having a problem with attention or has attention deficit hyperactivity disorder just a table behind the TV? They would virtually be listening to the adverts because they have difficulties concentrating. So you need to tell the parents, let the child go like this.
So
don't let the child study. I mean,
in
let
the
the child,
format.
When you are studying and you don't give yourself like timelines, you easily get off. But if the child knows that, okay, after every 15 minutes,
can take a break.
I'll take a break and come back. Then, if you measure the rate, at the beginning is very high, in the midpoint is average. When they know that they are about ending, it goes high again. So if it is a longer period, then the latency period will also be long.
I'm going to put you on pause for a moment there, Bernard, because we're going to go hand it over to Kevin, where he should be standing by with some comments on this particular discussion. Kevin, what have we got?
Yes, Benny, and obviously dyslexia or any learning disability is a very serious matter. So we are asking you, how much do you know about learning disabilities, and how do you expect educational authorities to deal with it? And there are a few comments that have come through, and let's see. Eddie Yusuf Ryan says, there is a subject in the colleges of education that equips trainees with the knowledge to handle people with disabilities. We need to be patient and study them very well, and we will get the best from them. Okay, and Prince Nuruddin Baumia says, very serious dealing with handicap. It is indeed. And Zachary Abdul Mumin says, they deserve love and care. Of course they do. And Collins Abebio says, I really love Nanaba in Chi. I wish to hear more. Okay, that's not what we asked, but okay. Bra Stickles says, visit the school for the blind and you will be surprised at the challenges they are really facing. Educational authorities are biased and are not even paying much attention to them, and even in the normal school setting. What are we supposed to be done? What's supposed to be done to ensure quality education is also in the same pipeline. Okay, Aziz Donla Wa says disabilities are being discriminated in our education sector. Let's take a couple more. And Andy Bema says, I don't think we have authentic education system in the country. Our leaders don't care of any welfare of any student in the country. Obviously, some strong opinions coming through. And Blessed Kwabena Mensah Eshan says the educational authorities are not paying attention to them at all. We'll take one final one, and that's from Edward Adukwe, who is saying, well, I think there must be trained teachers towards that. So those are your comments coming in about learning disabilities, and we'll go back to Benny.
Much for that, Kevin. And it looks like the people out there are basically on the same page, because everybody seems to be worried that nobody's paying attention to the people who do have disabilities. So Bernadette, what's the way forward? I mean, how do we make progress? How do we ensure that these kids are going to be taken care of in the future?
Yeah, moving forward, I think the first thing we need to do as a nation is to look at solving the problem from different angles, from the angle of the teacher and from the angle of the pupil or the student. From the teacher's point, we need to get the teacher well trained. This does not require general knowledge in the training. It requires specific knowledge, specific therapies, specific ways of dealing with the problem, because there are a broad range of problems. But the teacher in the classroom should have adequate knowledge as to how to address the problem, and then be willing, the willingness also to do it. Secondly, we also need to seriously, as a matter of urgency, need to look at the number of pupils we put in the class, because these pupils are those who need one-on-one attention. And if you have a teacher who is supposed to handle 80 pupils, one teacher in a class, and happens to have just two of them who have learning problems, how is this teacher going to be attending to them? So we need to address the issue of the number of pupils in the class. At the level of the pupils, we need to do early intervention. What that means is that by the time they are getting into basic one, we should do assessment, diagnostic tests that will give us an idea of who is likely to have the problem and who is not. Then when we get to know those who are likely to have the problem, then we can do comprehensive assessments, determine the nature of the problem and how we will solve it. And then from the point of view of the parents must be understanding enough. They must be willing to do their part at home. So this demands a holistic approach. Government must put in a lot of money.
I want to say thank you for coming in this morning. Mr. Bernard Boahing is the Executive Director of the Splendid Foundation, and we've been talking about learning disabilities. And to all the teachers and the parents out there, please have some patience for your kids. It's not always something that is not related to education.